You are listening to the Intelligent Vocalist Podcast, episode 151.
Welcome to the Intelligent Vocalist with John Henny. This is the podcast dedicated to help you be a smarter, better, more informed singer. And now, your host for the Intelligent Vocalist, John Henny.
Hey there, this is John Henny. Welcome back to another episode of The Intelligent Vocalist. I do so appreciate you spending your precious listening time with me. Today, I have repeat guests. It is Laurel, Irene, and David Harris of Voice Science Works. And Laurel and David are two of my favorite voice educators. Number one, because they are incredibly smart and they really have this voice science thing dialed in. And they have it dialed in so well that they can explain it simply, where just about anyone can understand it. And I go to the Voice Science Works website often just to clarify my own ideas, to see what they're talking about. They're always on the cusp of the latest research. They always know about new developments in voice, certainly before I do. But they don't just stop at the science. They're wonderful musicians, and they also really go from the mind to the heart. They understand the creative psyche and the mindset of singers and musicians, and more importantly, just the need to be in a safe, creative space. And I had Laurel and David back because they are going to be doing their Neo Voice Festival again this year in Los Angeles. And I wanted to talk to them about it because this festival really brings together all of the great things that they do. The voice science and the thinking side of singing combined with the body and also the spirit to just really release the singing voice in a holistic way. I just absolutely love their work. We talk about the role of science in singing. We also talk about the importance of a safe singing space and to be able to let yourself be free to play with different sounds in the voice, as well as why it is beneficial to sing with others. How learning to sing can be a very solitary and often judgmental experience, and ways to break free of that. So I now bring you Voice Science Works. I am here with Laurel, Irene, and David Harris of Voice Science Works. Welcome.
Hello.
Hey, John. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to have you back on the podcast. Some exciting stuff coming up. You have your NEO festival rapidly approaching, and I want to get to that in a little bit. But I was looking at the video that you've done from last year's NEO, and I was just really struck by your use of, shall we say, unfinished sounds. Just
I like that word. Yeah,
exploring what the voice can do. My thought was, it's not out of the box. You threw the box away and stepped into the ocean. And I just, why do you think it's important for singers to just kind of freeform explore what their voice can do?
I guess, the first answer would be because you can. And I think, the other answer I give a lot is that like each different thing you do actually like emphasizes the other skill set. So this idea that our brain learns so well by contrast. And that's a really new idea, I think, for vocalists. Like, oh, but if I want to sing classically and I spend an hour belting, I've undone the classical training, versus, oh, I did a different skill, a different sound, and now I actually have a stronger point of contrast for both skill sets. And now I can come back to the first one stronger. So fact that, yeah, we're human. We can make all these sounds. They all have expressive value. We're artists, so let's play with them. And then if we're just really interested in technical skill sets, the more variety you have in the skill sets, the stronger each one can become, and just a part of your tool set.
I think too, there's an emotional component to creating sound and to the messages that we tend to get in study, and actually people who don't study, who just like see the world. I mean, our world is so judgmental against voices. And so when what we've noticed in our experience is that when we say to people, make a sound, any sound, and then we say, well, here's another one, let's try this one, here's another one. And they really start to allow themselves to hear the message of, oh, I can do that too. People have strong emotional reactions where they feel more free, where they feel empowered, where they feel like, they can for the first time. Often we hear people say, I've wanted to do this, but always felt like it was wrong, or, and not even always because somebody was mean to them or anything, but, the way we study are in little tight boxes of, you've got 30 minutes or an hour with so-and-so, and they're going to teach you how to do the right thing. And, that is voice training, but voicing is, like Laurel was saying, is so much more colorful, and there's so many more opportunities. And so we really try in this kind of concentrated week of artistry to say, what could you do if you tried? And then there's also a real creative component to the week, because it's not just singers who are there. We're sharing the week with composers who are either singing composers or, songwriters, or just people who want to know more about the voice. And so there's an element of, well, what sounds can you make? And then how can you communicate that to other people by, putting it into a song, or, and so then through that process, people who don't identify as composers actually go through the process of starting to create in that compositional songwriting kind of way. And so it becomes this expanding creative experience that is just incredibly fulfilling.
Well, yeah, and I think the lines should blur between singing performance and composition, because you're creating in the moment, or you should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially with contemporary music, because the parameters are really erased, if you will.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a brilliant idea, to have singers really start to embrace that side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then styles that have, improvisatory elements, like that is the same, brain space as composing, just right on the spot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those lines are blurred, as you said.
And the other cool thing is that we witness each person not only exploring new things with their voice, but then really celebrating the parts of them that they've studied. Like we in the excuse me, the week ends with the premiere of a new major work. So last year it was like an hour and a half of solid music, which was amazing, all of which had been written for those people and created by those people. And there was one piece in it where everybody broke into groups of 3, and based on certain rules, had little bitty solos that they created in the moment while other people backed them up. It was really, it was an intricate composition, but it was super fun. And to see each person showcasing their strengths, but then backing up others in their strengths was, by the end of the week, was just such a cool experience, because we had people from all different backgrounds, all different countries. And yeah, it's just that, we left the week saying, having heard ourselves say over and over again, why isn't this happening all the time? This is fun. This is engaging. This is voicing. This is fulfilling. This is nurturing. And we heard that from lots of people too. So it's exciting for us to get to be a part of it.
And I think what's great is for so many singers, it's a really solitary endeavor.
Yeah.
Just going to their voice lesson, going back home, practicing, getting stuck inside their own head, their judgments, going back to a voice lesson where they're told this is right, this is wrong. And there's something freeing about singing with other people.
Absolutely.
And because you're involved a lot in choirs, why do you think it's essential that singers sing with others on a regular basis?
Yeah, and this is interesting for me and just my own journey as a singer and someone who's like identified as a soloist. I used to really like resent that idea and kind of thought as choir as a requirement I have to do. And part of it was my own, like I was so stuck in one style of singing that I actually thought that singing in a different way, which was kind of a choral way, if you will, was actually going to hurt my voice and I couldn't do it. And so I had a lot of that baggage. And so for me, part of it was just opening up to, I can make so many different sounds and all of them can feel efficient and optimum and healthy. And I can do that to fit into a group as well. But then I also had to kind of wrestle with the fact that, like, for me, the most meaningful and emotional experiences singing were with other people on stage. And just the bonds that creates and the feeling of just being like lifted by everyone and kind of carried by other people's sounds, and they feed you and you feed them. And I actually started to take that into solo performances. And I kind of imagine I had a little background choir always with me, just to carry that feeling over. Because yeah, as you said, to be a solo singer and to be someone studying it can start to feel very lonely, for sure.
And I'm quickly realizing that I'm one of the few true believers in singing, just singing. And I don't say that in a selfish way, or a self-aggrandizing way, but just that, like when I say to my choral professional colleagues, hey, let's just get together and just sing this song, most people are like, yeah, no, I really don't do that anymore. Yeah, not right now, And when I run into somebody else who's like, hey, let's run over in the corner and sing something, I'm like, oh my gosh, there are more of us, So for me, it's just, it's, since I was little, something I just have passionately loved to simply sing with other people. And I'll lay down a bass line or whatever, so you can do whatever, and I think that's becoming, there's all kind of research supporting why that's healthy, and there's all kind of experience. But for me as a choral leader, we were talking about this last night after rehearsal. As I continue to work on what it means to create a space for people to sing together, I'm realizing that I'm finding more fulfillment as a leader and as a singer myself by creating spaces where they can maximize on that sense of personal ownership and contribution, and therefore open themselves to actually singing together and the joys therein. I think a lot of choral rehearsal traditionally has been kind of how you describe the voice lesson. Somebody stands in front, tells you what's right, tells you what's wrong. Eventually you get up and present that to people kind of wrapped up in the anxieties of right and wrong and what you've heard. Last night in our rehearsal, we did a lot of just kind of simple movement while we were singing so that they didn't have to pay attention to my kind of gestural impetus. And we did a lot of singing in circles, moving around, moving closer and further from each other, looking at each other. It's not new for us, but I just kind of was like, I'm going to try a lot more of this tonight. And it was such an enriching experience because each individual was leading more. Each individual brought more of themselves and loved, as they shared their experience, seemed to have loved the chance to do that. So I think, singing together is so important, and finding ways to encourage people to sing together where they can feel free to actually contribute themselves is strangely a fairly new concept in the choral world. It's not certainly isolated. There are plenty of people who find ways to do that in their own way, but it's important.
It's almost like you're combining ideas of mindfulness within the setting, because I think one of the things we do when we're singing, learning to sing, is we get so inside our own heads and we get so captured by thought that we're missing the full experience of everything. And those exercises that you're talking about, I find fascinating, because it's like you're touching the shared consciousness and getting deeper into the actual experience and the awareness of the experience. And I think that's just crucial for singers. And the other thing that I think is wonderful as educators, that you're allowing yourself to just sing for the enjoyment of it and the expression of it. Because I found in the voice teaching community, because we're so often the ones saying, yes, do this, don't do that, that when it's time for us to sing, we're paralyzed by this fear of judgment, that we have to be perfect. And there are also those out there that seem to like to taunt voice teachers. You know, if you have an opinion, sing something, show your voice, sing this. You don't sing as well as that teacher, so you don't know what you're talking about. I wonder if you had thoughts on that for your fellow teachers.
The idea of like once you bring judgment into the room, like nobody is safe from it. So if, you, the teacher, have brought into the room like, oh, well, that song's really not right for you, and you're really not singing that, in tune, and you have those kind of thoughts, because you're in the room, at any point those thoughts could also turn on to you. And so I think they probably are. So I think, that feeling of like, oh my gosh, like I've spent so much time critiquing and, picking at someone else. Like, how could I ever go on stage with that voice going on loop myself? So I think whatever voice you're used to hearing for yourself as a performer, bringing that into your teaching, and maybe thinking of your teaching as like that mirror onto yourself. That's as you're saying, it's a mindfulness practice. It's so much bigger than just the studio. But when we talk about like, giving someone targets versus, the idea of judgment language, it's really just like the slight shift of language, the difference between, oh yeah, that's closer to what you're looking for, and oh, that was good. Oh, that note was wrong. Or, oh yeah, listen to this note again. We want to get closer to this target versus that was flat. That was off pitch. So it's just these little, it's not about anything goes. Let's just, make a bunch of crazy sounds and see what sticks. That's also, we do that fun, too. Yeah. But there are times to be really specific about your target, and it's not, you can aim towards a target without entering the part of your brain that associates good, bad, right, wrong, which then immediately reflects to I'm good, bad, I'm right, wrong, my voice is good, bad, right, wrong. So just those little shifts seem to really just change your brain space, and then also open up, oh yeah, I would also sing in the room with me, giving myself those kind of critiques.
Well, and I think there's we talk a lot about this because we talk a lot about judgment language, and especially in the choral world, there's a big, the immediate question is, well, if they're singing the wrong note, you have to tell them they're singing the wrong note. And, we've tested that regularly by, it's rare that I'll say, so-and-so, that's not the note that's written on the score. What I'll say is, hey, let's sing along again. Look at this phrase, see if there's anything that's, causing you pause, and then let's sing it again. And most of the time they figure it out, which tells me that everybody's aware of what's there. If they're not music readers, then, and I'm aware of that, I'll sing it or I'll play it and just let them guide their ear. Maybe I'll have them sing on a straw while that happens, so that, they're not having to use the sheet music, or if we're not using sheet music at all, we'll just do it again to give them a chance to become acquainted with it in their own way, rather than saying, no, you didn't sing that note right. And I think the more we talk about it, there's such a strange arrogance in believing that you can simply say to somebody, that's wrong, and expecting that their mental capacity would allow them to immediately change it within this very complex world that is voicing, especially when you're learning music as well. And so And yet I think that's how we are taught most of the time, is to think, okay, there's one more hole I can put my finger in and plug the dike, and then we think that works because our conscious mind can like check the box, instead of recognizing that the conscious mind is, selling us something that doesn't exist. And then we have to, like you're saying, this meditative, we have to give ourselves the space to actually let our brains and bodies do the response, recognize it for ourselves. And yeah, that doesn't mean it's completely, free, as far as, make it up when we're trying to sound like a certain way. But it does mean there are ways to guide ourselves into those worlds that creates the potential for us to discover things through curiosity, rather than get beat down with them by, judgment. And they're like, I had another thought there. With sound too, like when we think about, I want to sound a certain way, I want to use this resonant strategy, I want to be able to sing in this style that I can't, or I want to, why can't I ever sound like Adele? I really want to. Or I think often too, I think I sound that way, and somebody, I put my voice in front of somebody and they say, "Ooh, no, you really don't." Like, that there are ways to discover those sounds too that are without judgment, especially with new technology today, by exploring different parts of the sound. A lot of the stuff I know that you do, that we do too, just to help people understand there's so much here in your sound. And if you'll kind of understand where the different parts of the sound are, they'll actually feed your ears and start to inform your voice too. That kind of exploration gives people the chance to be curious and discover, and their voices really open up. Like I'm always amazed at what our choir can do, because we have people just who have never sung before to pros. I mean, it's a wide spectrum, and we do massive amounts of music in all different styles, some with music, some without music, high difficulty, low difficulty, but high emotional requirements, and they're able to do it. And I think so much of that is because we offer so many platforms of discovery where they can bring themselves.
And that brings me to the other part of the NEO festival, is the science of it. And you delve into the voice acoustics and resonance strategies. What are some of your favorite strategies for singers these days to begin to just experience what resonance is like, and more importantly, the control of that resonance?
Yeah. So, I mean, we kind of first start with having a definition of resonance as some overtone in your sound is getting boosted or resounded, resonated. And going back to the idea of all these crazy array of sounds we can make, there's not just one version of resonance. Like, it's not just, often the kind of classical, oh, that's resonant, and everything else is not. Instead, like, when a different overtone is boosted, that's a different kind of resonance. And that can be a sound, like, that's also resonant. And just a different part of the sound is coming out. So first getting people to see how many different overtones are in their sound, getting them to hear them as separate parts of the sound with an overtone analyzer software like Voce Vista. And then depending on what their goal is, what kind of style, what kind of sound you're looking to make, really bringing out the overtones that they need to boost in their voice to make it resonant, and getting them to just hear and lock into those. And like I said, we can do that with the software or other just different kind of sounds people can make close to overtone singing, where you're really just bringing out one overtone at a time. And that goes really well with the sounds that bring out in the sound. Kitty sounds, so we use a lot. A lot of this we're inspired by Chadley Valentine, who uses that sound often, starting with it and then going into a vowel. And whatever you kind of locked into on the you try to continue to hear when you open it up into a different sound. So recognizing resonance is some boosted overtone, and then getting yourself to hear that overtone within the whole of the sound.
Yeah, and like the games Laurel was just describing, some that are as fun as be a cat for a moment, and then some that, are use technology, listening will, in a rehearsal or with an individual, isolate parts of their sound to their hearing and say, sing into that. And while they're listening to that sound, their voice figures out how to boost it, to resonate it. And we've had a lot of success asking people what their goals are, having them sing, showing them in the analyzer, this is what you're doing. Let's filter your overtones and bring out the ones that are most valuable to your goal. Now listen to that. And they go, oh yeah, that's more I'm listening for. Okay, now sing into that. So it's their new voice. We basically electronically resonated for them. We used the software to do what their vocal tract would eventually do. And then by listening to that new sound, they are now singing into their new voice. So it's, again, that discovery idea, the curiosity idea. They got to say, this is what I want. They got to see, this is what I'm doing. And they got to see, this is what I want to do. And we'll sometimes compare it with maybe a target artist. You want to sound like so-and-so. Let's look at what they're doing. Oh, wow, they're really bringing out these overtones. And you're really bringing out these. Well, let's switch it up a little bit. And that whole process is, from sound like a cat to let's get into what parts of the sound are coming out, is all fun. It's play-based. It's also exploratory. And at the festival, we go through the science of what I just described, in addition to doing all the play stuff. So people, have moments of saying, okay, I see the harmonics now. Okay, I understand why we're filtering this way. And then in rehearsals, we'll pause and show the analyzer and say, everybody sing into this harmonic, or, we'll just jump around and be animals. So we try and come at it from every direction so that, to Laurel's first point, people realize we're not looking for one thing. We're looking for choices, and the body needs to make those sounds in different ways in order to know how to kind of hone in on what those choices could be, so that we know how they feel, so that we know how they sound and can rely on them and trust them. Because anytime you make a new sound, it takes doing it a bunch of times. We're always trying to do new stuff. Undertone singing is the thing I'm playing with right now. And some days it's just like, ooh, and it's right there. And other days I go, just trying to figure it out. And it's just the way it is, because it's
really
new.
Fun to be around.
Yeah. No judgment.
Yeah.
You must have very confused neighbors.
Yeah. No, they know.
But I think the key there is you're using science to clarify what's going on and to give a roadmap, so to speak, and then it's right back into the body and right back into the experience.
Yeah.
That I think is important, and I would imagine everyone discovering it as a group has got to be really beneficial.
Yeah. Well,
Totally.
I'm sorry, it was your turn to talk,
Go
but we've noticed over the last couple of years how many colleagues and friends and past singers, people who say, well, I used to sing, explain their voicing experience as having had a point of trauma at some point. It may have been their whole training. It may have been a moment. It may have been, we've heard stuff from in school I experienced to I was a gigging pro, and it was so hard to hear people's comments, to the trolls on internet or whatever, and how that shuts them down as vocalists. And so we've really tried to position ourselves to have a compassionate ear toward that, because the more I look at it, the more we hear people say stuff, the more it's the common experience. Even if it's not so acute that you quit singing, it's there. Somebody somewhere, and probably repeatedly, told you weren't good enough. And so, we, using a space wherein people can support one another emotionally as we explore, I think is kind of critical, and it's really emotional. I mean, like, just all of the really capable singers who showed up last year and composers, in the video you mentioned that we put out, what they brought to that experience was so over the top each day, because they said, I feel free to do this with these people. And that was, it's like that summer camp vibe, but, now they all have each other's back too. And now, like we talked at the end of the week about feeling that sense of community, regardless of where in the world you are. And throughout the year since last year, there have been group posts in the Facebook group, about how, I'm still feeling y'all's support and that kind of thing. And that's, I mean, you can't buy that anywhere. That, that kind of feeling that I'm connected to somebody artistically and creatively is really cool. So that's a kind of bigger mission goal for us, is just helping people feel like they're connected and capable.
I think that's key, because when people experience this trauma, whether it's criticism, a choir teacher that was unkind, internet trolls, etc., when that is allowed to stop you, they're stealing from you.
Mm-hmm.
And not only are they stealing from you, they're stealing from others that would benefit from your expression of what it is that you love to do. I've spoken with voice teachers, brilliant voice teachers, who are dealing with issues in their own voice, whether it's medical issues, or they're just in a place in their life where there's a lot of stress and they're not able to practice as much. And they just fight through imposter syndrome. And there are areas where they want to reach out and share their message, where they're kind of shut down. And I think, you providing a space where people can learn to not be silenced, I think is incredibly important, especially as social media causes some odd type of human interaction that we don't quite know how to deal with yet.
Yeah.
So tell us where people can sign up and where this is going to be held.
Yeah, so the festival is called the NEO, or the Neo Voice Festival. It stands for New Explorative Oratorio. Oratorio being like one large work that has a through-line narrative. The festival's open to vocalists and composers, and then everyone who comes sings and gets to learn all the same stuff together. And it's in Los Angeles, kind of right in the heart of Koreatown, in July 18 to 26 this summer. And we can go on voicescienceworks.org. There's a tab, or just straight to neovoicefestival.com. And we've got applications are open all the way through June. But if you want to be considered as a featured composer, as a soloist, or apply for a scholarship or fellowship, that deadline is next week, February 1st, to apply.
And the tuition is lower before February 1st.
That's right.
Well.
Yeah. Early bird tuition.
And to say again, because I know that a lot of people on your podcast identify first as pop singers or music theater singers. The word composer sometimes can turn people off, but we certainly do read music, but that doesn't mean that if you don't typically use sheet music to learn, that you'll be out of the box or out of the group. There's room for all people who identify with their voice in any way, and who have different learning styles. That's it is a safe space. It's a welcoming space, and we actually value many different vocal perspectives.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. I love what the both of you are doing in the voice world. Even the Voice Science Works website, one of my favorite websites. I send people there often. The information is fantastic, and it's really explained correctly, but in a way that everyone can understand, which is not easy to do.
Always trying to walk that line.
And that means a lot because you are very gifted in that as well. So
Exactly.
Well, thank you. Well, sometimes I make things a little more simple than they should be. But yes. So again, best of luck with the festival. And I will put the links on the show notes for this podcast. So just go to johnhenny.com/151 for episode 151. And again, Laurel and David, thank you so much. And we will talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, John.
Hey, if you want to know more about me, please visit my website, johnhenny.com. You can sign up for my email list where I'll always let you know as soon as new podcast episodes come out. You can also check out my free warm-up course, Warming Up with a Straw. That's very helpful. Just click on the image there on the home page. And if you enjoy the podcast, please go to iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a review. It does help others find the podcast. Please spread the word to your singing friends. And until next time, to better singing. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.